Good morning, everybody. Today I'd like to demonstrate how to dynamically call methods in PHP. Now this is especially useful if you're creating a model that's going to be used with a controller used with a web form, where you might need to set a whole bunch of values based on a handful of elements in a web form. So to look at our model, this is a very simple model. It's just called foo. It stores a single value, has a single accessor, which both gets and sets the value. I generally shy away from using the built-in get and set methods because of how they can be used or abused. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But I don't want to focus on the model. What I want to focus on is these two groups of statements down here. Now you'll see I just instantiate foo, set it to 1, 2, 3, so nothing special there. But then look at inside of the print statement. Now you'll notice that there is not a proper method. It doesn't name the method directly in the statement. Instead, what it does is it refers to the value stored in fn and then looks for a method called that name within your class. So you can use this to dynamically set a method call in PHP. So say for example you have your web form. What you could do is name your elements according to the accessors that you have created for the form. Now this will simplify your controller layout quite a lot if you're using the MVC pattern for PHP. In the next group you'll see that I do the same thing, but in this case I use bar as the functional argument. So we'll see that by doing this, this statement here will fail, and it should. However, it is worth noting if you have a double underscore set method defined, it will implicitly set a value. So watch out for that. There's a way to check for that. Here, I'll show you that in the next demo. So just to show that this does work, let's go ahead and run this. And indeed, we see the accessor was called. Just so you have a reference to the source code, you'll see that the accessor was called foo. Then when we went to go call method bar, it said, sorry, not available, and the script dies. Now, of course, even a script death in a production web application could complicate things, especially if you're running a vulnerable version of PHP. So it's highly advised to not call to methods that don't exist. And we'll show you how you can make sure that doesn't happen if you take tainted data from your web form. Now remember, anything that comes in from your web form is tainted. That includes variables, that includes form data, that includes even the names of the form elements themselves, because people can just as easily modify the DOM and then send it back to your application. So here's a way to protect against that. Let's take a look at demo 2. Now in demo 2 you'll notice that the class and the instantiation is exactly the same, but then we introduced this new function called execIfExists. Now this isn't exactly how you do it, but the onus of the whole thing is right here, this call to method exists. Now you'll notice that we pass in the class instantiation. In this case we instantiated it to foo, as well as the function name. So what method exist does is it looks through your class and checks to see, does there exist a method with a function name fn? And if it does, in this case it'll return a true value, which will trigger the if statement and allow execution of that particular accessor. So we'll see how that works here in just a moment. Now, when we go to call this statement, it'll look for a method foo. If it exists, it'll execute it. In this case, it does exist, so we'll see that show up here. If in this case, we'll try for bar. Of course, that doesn't exist if we look up the class definition, so that should return a no such method exists statement. Let's take a look at that now. And indeed it does. So the method exists, it prints out 1, 2, 3, and then the next statement, there's no new line here, but you'll then see that no such method bar exists. For reference, here's what the code looks like. And as you can see, indeed, No such method bar exists. So this will allow you to do some taint checking if you elect to use dynamic function naming in your PHP web applications. That's all for now. Thank you for watching.